Welcome to Death Holler, the place of haunted hearts and haunted homes. We welcome you to Death Manor, the home that boasts the most ghosts. Come on in. We've been expecting you. Take a look around. You might see someone that you recognize. Do you hear those voices? That's just the Reverend Dr. Death and Llareyna. They're so happy to see you. Sit back and relax. Make yourself at home. Your new home. And remember, when you're in Death Holler, listener discretion is always advised. We hope you enjoy the show. Have I ever told you that I hate that opening a lot? And I created it.
Why? Because you got to listen to it every time?
Yeah, it's the listening to it, and it's the how fucking cheesy I sound, but it's intended, obviously.
Yeah.
Is it, though?
Yeah.
Well, I have to sound like that. I have to sound that happy and cheerful. Do I sound that happy and cheerful throughout the day? I know when I'm excited, I do.
I don't know. You're always in a chipper mood. So.
Oh, okay. Apparently, I'm always happy.
You are. Just that we're like the yin and yang.
Welcome to Death Holler.
Yeah, welcome to Death Holler, everybody. If you didn't know where you were at.
This is the first time we're on video, so we're sorry.
Yes.
Yeah, might as well put the apologies out front.
Yeah, let's just get it right out there. We don't know what you were expecting, but here you go. Here's what it is.
Let's just say we're not made for TV.
Yeah, definitely. I was told I have a radio voice, but I don't believe I do. So, anyways, back to the Reverend.
So are we going to get right into it? I mean, I hate to be this way about it right off the bat, but
The real question is, since you guys are doing video, are you gonna get a backdrop now?
That's what we've talked about doing. I don't know if we're going to go that route though. This early.
I think we can order you something like a horror type drop, and all you gotta do is pin it to the ceiling.
He literally has Frankenstein right behind him.
I know, but hey, it's cheap. You can order him something.
Oh my God!
Work another shift in Amazon.
You interrupted him. Don't be rude. He asked if we were just going to get right into it because for what reason now?
Well, I mean, this is technically the second part of a two-part episode, a two-part episode. So
yes.
We've already discussed Stir of Echoes, and I guess that won't be technically filmed, but now we're getting ready to go into Legend of Hell House, and didn't know if we wanted to discuss anything like, prior to, or just get right into the movie.
No, let's get right into the movie. I mean, hopefully people will start catching the other episodes prior to this to see how we run things, but we are going to try doing video pretty much from here on out. So you'll kind of see how things run. We do 2 episodes typically in one sitting, and then I release them every Monday. And if you're lucky, every other Wednesday, you're going to catch an episode of, I think I downloaded the wrong movie. And I don't want to get into it. You just have to know what you're getting into when you listen to that. You have to be 18 or over to listen to it on YouTube.
You guys should show clips from the movie.
I think I want to start doing that, but obviously not anything too saucy.
Well, it's easy to edit blur to the video when you're done.
Okay.
It takes very, very little effort to do that.
Yeah. So we'll probably do that. We'll probably start adding little clips. Anyways, Reverend, let's roll right into The Legend of Hell House from 1973.
Hell of a good movie.
This one's kind of an old one. I mean, we're going back a little bit. Directed by John Howe. This was written by Richard Matheson, and not only is it a novel that he wrote, a very, very good novel, by the way, but also he did the screenplay for this. So this is actually all the way around Richard Matheson's baby when it comes to the story on this one. Music is by Della Derbyshire and Brian Hodgson. And this is one of the first electronic scores that was ever done for a film, which is kind of strange for a haunted house movie back in the 70s.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like traditional composer work, no symphony, that sort of thing. They literally they got like out a synthesizer and kind of came up with the music for it. So it's kind of an odd one that way. Normally I cover the budget for these movies, but I couldn't for the life of me find the budget for this one. I don't know what they filmed it for, what it cost them, but I do know box office wise, it only made 2.5 million USD. So this one's very, very much on the low end of the earning part.
Yeah, but I'm not saying that there weren't like major blockbusters back in the day, but were they almost as big as today?
Oh no, I think Jaws was probably considered the very first blockbuster, quote unquote. So I mean, most of the movies back then wasn't like, they didn't knock it out of the park like, the ones that came after that.
Yeah.
Principal players for this movie, we've got Pamela Franklin playing Florence Tanner. She is a minister, a mental medium, and she is a gullible and tragic victim of this movie. I don't know if you got this whenever you were watching the movie, but she is technically, I mean, this goes along that's thematically with the Stir of Echoes a little bit. She was technically raped by the ghost, like at one point in this movie. I don't know.
It looked like she enjoyed it because I saw a smile on her face.
Well, it's technically supposed to be, I think in the book, it kind of is that a little bit because she's, like there's a lot of sexual repression that comes out, in the story, but that's one of the reasons why the story's so good. Like it tackled the stuff like, right up front, but I think it's more like she's also getting possessed by the spirit. Like she fights it and it's hurting her at first. And then like once it takes over, then, you see the smile on her face, but yeah.
Well, yeah, and we just can't seem to escape the ghost fucking in the past few films.
It's lingering with us. I don't know eventually we'll get out of it here soon. But I don't know. I can't say that because we're going to be covering, if I remember right, we're going to be covering the haunting of Bly Manor, and I'm pretty sure there's ghosts that fuck in that movie constantly. So it's going to stay with us for a little bit longer.
Oh my God.
So Pamela Franklin was in Circle of Fear, aka Ghost Story, which is a TV series anthology. She was in an episode of Night Gallery, the Rod Serling television show that was kind of a follow-up to The Twilight Zone. She was in a TV movie called Satan's School for Girls. That sounds like that could go to a Donnie G movie, actually. But and she was in The Nanny, which is where a boy is blamed for the deaths of like his I believe it's his parents and like the people around him, when it's actually the evil nanny that's doing that. And one of her first films ever, speaking of Bly Manor, is a movie called The Innocents, which she plays the little girl in, and that is the story that Bly Manor is based off of. So we will be covering The Innocents here soon too, so she'll be coming back in a future episode.
Her character in this film also is the inspiration for Cindy Campbell in Scary Movie, at least one of the films.
Oh wow, okay.
Oh, I
was not aware of that.
I am 100% shocked that you had not caught the scene.
As soon as I saw that scene, let's
not talk about it.
So
I was dying
hard.
So bad. Okay, we're gonna keep it a secret.
Okay. Roddy McDowall is Ben Fisher. He is the survivor, the doomed prophet, and the physical medium in the movie. And of all the doomed prophets that we have covered and probably will cover, he's the least annoying and probably the most effective. So,
yeah.
Most of them just scream, we're all going to die, we're all going to die, and then everybody dies. This guy at least tried to help before, the people, because they just wouldn't listen to him. And of course, Roddy McDowall is one of those damn dirty apes. He was in most of the Planet of the Apes film, the original with Charlton Heston.
That's
so, I mean,
what I recognized him from. I couldn't put my finger on it. I was like, God damn, he looks so familiar. Damn dirty ape.
Yeah, he's very well known for that role. He was also in Overboard, the Kurt Russell film from 1987. Goldie Hawn.
I love that movie.
I believe he was the helper on the yacht that actually, was actually, trying to get the two of them together or something. I think he was that character, if I remember right.
Which, if do not watch the remake, it's not worth it.
Are you saying Anna Faris is? Speaking of Anna Faris, there's a scene in this movie that clearly inspired her role in Scary Movie 2, but we'll get to that too here in a little bit.
That's what I was talking about.
Oh, you said Cindy Campbell. I thought you was talking. I was thinking Scream.
Well,
yes. I was thinking like.
Oh, not Sidney Prescott.
Yeah, not Sidney Prescott. That's what
Cindy
came to my mind when you said that. Oh, yes. That scene was clearly inspired by Anna Faris or this movie.
I died.
He is actually Roddy McDowall's prolific voice actor. He was the Mad Hatter on Batman the Animated Series.
Oh wow.
He was on Pinky and the Brain. He was in Gargoyles, the Disney TV show that a lot of people of our generation, really liked. And then Pirates of Dark Water, which is a little lesser known, but he was in that.
I saw that.
And
that's a hell of a good show.
Yeah.
No, you're tight.
He was also in Bedknobs and Broomsticks and an episode of the original Twilight Zone. And of course, for horror fans, he was in Fright Night in 1985. That's another place you might have known him from, Noah, because he played the Peter Vincent, I believe is his name, the guy who there's like the late night movie host or whatever that Charlie Brewster goes to try to help him take care of the vampire in that movie. And one of his first films, I believe, is a movie called Murder in the Family, which was in 1938. So he was in the movies for a long time. We have Clive Revel playing Dr. Lionel Barrett, physicist, paranormal investigator, and extreme skeptic. Even in the light of paranormal phenomena, he refuses to believe that ghosts exist, apparently, or at least that they're intelligent entities. I believe he believes that they're there, but they're like just energy or something. He's also a high-profile voice actor. He was in the original Transformers TV series, played Kickback in that. In Transformers the movie, the 1986 one that he also played Kickback. That's the one that destroyed a lot of people of our generation because they saw Optimus Prime die, I believe, in that one. He was in Freakazoid, also in Pinky and the Brain, and Batman the Animated Series. He was also in that as Alfred.
Wow.
He was in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventures, the animated series.
Oh my God.
I didn't even know they did that.
Yes, it was actually pretty good too. I mean, well, it was decent. It wasn't amazing. It wasn't Ghostbusters, so.
The new Scooby-Doo Mysteries. And these are two that I'm sure, or one of these I'm sure Llareyna would appreciate. Dracula Dead and Loving It. He's in that. And
I love that movie.
Chud 2, Bud the Chud. He was in that movie.
Oh, God.
We have Gail Honeycutt playing Ann Barrett, loving wife to Lionel, very sexually repressed, and apparently because of that, she's easily possessed. She was in The Spiral Staircase in 1975. I think there's like a newer version of that. Eye of the Cat, which is a horror film about a couple planning to rob a mansion of the man's wealthy aunt, but he's afraid of cats and his aunt's mansion's full of them. So that's kind of a bad place to be, I guess, if you're afraid of cats. And probably her biggest role was in the Dallas TV series back in the day.
Wow.
She has that look, though. She looks like a soap opera type star. So, I mean, it kind of fits. And there's not a lot of people in this movie, so rounding out the cast and just for a short few minutes at the beginning is Roland Culver, who plays Mr. Deutsch, the rich old man who's apparently afraid of death. And he was in, surprisingly, he was in Dead of Night, a 1945 horror anthology film, which is a rare movie because at that time Britain banned horror films during World War II. And and it's one of the first movies to ever feature a malevolent ventriloquist dummy that kind of caught on afterward and became popular. A little bit of trivia, though, the 1977 American anthology film of the same name actually features stories by Richard Matheson. So,
wow,
kind of he went full circle there, from one part of his life to the end of it. And also he was in The Uncanny, which is a 1977 horror anthology about, of all things, cats. So cats and them being crazy seem to feature into these films quite a bit.
Yeah, I can see that.
Synopsis for this movie is obsessed with finding proof of the afterlife. Mr. Deutsch hires a well-renowned parapsychologist as well as two mediums to investigate the most infamous haunted house in the world. Skeptical, the parapsychologist uses science to try and debunk the theory that ghosts exist as anything more than electromagnetic residue. The only survivor of the previous attempt to investigate Hell House keeps himself closed off to its influences as he warns the others of its dangers. Ectoplasm emanates, repressed sexuality is brought into the open, and a church in hell may hold a secret to it all. So I want to start out this discussion by going right off the bat and saying that if the beginning title card of this movie did not inspire the movie that the House of the Devil intro,
oh my God,
which I'm swear I was waiting for a cheap knockoff Moving in Stereo to play right behind the title.
Yeah, actually, I'm glad you said something about that because I don't really like older films. And as soon as I saw that, I was like, ugh, this reminds me exactly of House of the Devil. And I was like, okay, but I don't hear, at least it's the normal music you're going to get for this time era. It's not the horrible knockoff version of it. So, I'll stick around. I'll see what I'm looking at.
I guess we can kind of go through it. Right off the bat, do you feel like the way that they presented the house with the fog and everything and the way that, that it was designed, like the interior of the house, do you feel like that was appropriate? Do you feel like that kind of, added to the atmosphere of the movie?
Yeah, I think 100% it did, because I don't know if you're going to talk about the set at all in the trivia. But I'm kind of curious as to if they used an actual house or if it was some kind of set that they used. I thought it looked pretty decent.
I believe the exterior, I don't know that I've got this in trivia, honestly, because the trivia is very sparse for this movie. But I believe the outside was an existing house. And they got lucky. I mean, this isn't the trivia, but they got lucky that there was no wind on the day that they were filming that. So whenever they had their fog machines, activated and, producing all that fog, it was just perfect because they got it in one take. They didn't have to, because there was no wind disturbing anything, and they just, got what they needed. And actually, Florence was talking about, I think she's the only one on the track, the commentary track on the Blu-ray that I have. She's talking about how that the stuff they used basically was making them basically gag from the smell and everything else, because it was just so thick and they all over the place.
Well, if you think about it too, it's an old school fog machine. So they didn't really figure out later on that it's baby, you can just get away with baby oil.
Yeah, I think they were using a mixture. She said there was dry ice. There was 2 or 3 ingredients, she said, and they all kind of just they did not mix well together as far as...
The dry ice is just hard carbon dioxide, so as it floods the area, it just chokes you out.
Yeah. It was pretty... I mean, that's the thing about this movie that has to be said. Even if you think that there's parts of it that are cheesy in its appearance, the special effects in this movie were done completely optically. They didn't have any other means to do them. And they are, you got to appreciate the skill that they used in getting them. It's skipping ahead a little bit, but that ectoplasm scene is insane considering the fact that they didn't have digital technology to create that.
Yeah, it actually does. It doesn't look bad at, well, it's not today's standards, but okay, whatever. You can't compare that. I thought it was pretty decent considering what they had. And I was looking around, I was like, how did they make this happen? I was like, whatever.
Really creative.
Yes.
And the scene in particular, because the director brought this up, and I was like, well, you don't think about it, and that's the sad thing now, but he's got a good point. The scene where Florence comes in and there's the bed and there's clearly somebody laying in it, and she goes to lift up the sheet and there's nobody underneath it. They had to figure that out. There was no good way to do that because because if you notice it, they don't really do it with a quick. I mean, the cut is not like so blatant that you know that they did it that way. And he wouldn't reveal actually how he did that. That I'm sure that they dropped the person out, whoever was in the bed underneath it or something like that. But he wouldn't reveal how they did it. But there's no quick cut there, so there's no like trickery that way. Like they just filmed it, and went with it. So
they did something. I don't know, but it looked really good.
Is there anything like that stands out, like, as far as like scenes in particular? I mean, the one we're going to obviously talk about is the cat, but I mean, for different reasons, but is there any besides that one that you want to bring up?
Are you talking about that includes any kind of scenery that might be paranormal or just in general, something that stood out?
Just anything that stood out, just like bring up, because I mean, there's no reason to like, nitpick everything in the movie, just kind of anything that stood out to you that, was cool or really cheesy or whatever,
Did you notice all of the books that the wife saw when she woke up from seeing that sex scene and the shadow sex scene, if you will?
I have that, which that shadow sex scene is another one of those, visual effects. But I actually have in the trivia the names of all those books, I believe, and you're going to enjoy those.
Yes, I mean, I did a pause. I was looking at them. I was like, wow. And then all of a sudden, she's walking downstairs feeling a little extra frisky. And probably one of my favorite scenes, obviously, aside from the cat scene, is her getting the shit slapped out of her by that guy. I was laughing so hard.
Slow your roll, bitch.
Like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
You jabroni.
Sound effects were amazing. Those were impressive. Those slaps, man, they slapped.
I don't know if you noticed, too, the gate when they were coming in. Did you happen to look at that?
I looked at them as far as like I focused on them as far as the scene that, moving in stereo where it kind of froze on them for a second, like the very tip of them, but I didn't like pay attention to them otherwise.
If you look at the gate, it looks like a devil's mouth.
Oh.
Kind of like a face.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know if that's true. I think it is. I was stupid high when I was watching this thing.
No, that would make sense because if you remember, that's one of my favorite scenes in the movie is when Roddy McDowall is like giving the history of Hell House, and he's talking about all the different things that, the creator, of the place was into. And I mean, he would gladly have a demon face on his gates because, I mean, they listed shit like necrophilia, drug use, like orgies. I mean, the guy was into everything. So.
Yeah. So if you happen to watch the intro again, you'll see it. It's like a devil's kind of like a grin on the gate.
Extreme fallacies throughout the whole film.
Well, and that was the thing too. The guy was like super, perverted.
Super into dicks.
Like, I mean, yeah.
You're going to tell me you don't like dicks?
Not when they're surrounding me.
Yeah, sure.
Turn that down, please.
Let's just go into it about the cat scene. So obviously,
let's just do it. Let's get into it.
Obviously, in Scary Movie 2, whenever Cindy is like, help, my pussy's gone crazy. Like, obviously, that is directly from this movie. There's no, I mean, as soon as I saw that scene start up, I'm like, oh my God, I know what this is from,
Yeah.
They're referencing.
Oh, I was dying. Me and my daughter were cracking up so hard. But, I mean, it was like, there was a lot of detail because even the night dress was kind of similar. And the hair, they cut her hair just like the actresses in this film. Or I should say both actresses had the same style haircut. So she was heavily like based upon this character in the Legend of Hell House. Cindy Campbell was based on the character in Legend of Hell House. So I was like, wow, like I would have never really put the two together until the, pussy attacked her, which was, it was almost like frame for frame too. Well, except for there was no boxing scene or anything.
Oh, yeah. And then she didn't shit in the cat's litter box like she did in Scary Movie 2. The thing that I thought was interesting is that, I mean, you can notice it right off the bat. Richard Matheson read The Haunting by Shirley Jackson, which we've already covered, the Haunting of Hill House.
Yeah.
And he said, I like that, but it doesn't go far enough. So I'm going to add a lot more, like out there, like sexual stuff and like violence and all that to the movie. And so the fact that whenever they made Scary Movie 2, it could very easily be a stand-in for, The Haunting at the time. But I mean, the fact that it also covered Hell House is kind of a, fun little, accident, if you want to call it that, just because, it's, Hell House is kind of like a redo of The Haunting anyways.
Yeah.
It even has like the same basic plot. You get a bunch of people like a medium, a skeptic, and kind of throw them in the house, and that it's kind of goes along the same route.
You know what got me a little bit about this movie, something I noticed is that they discussed it a lot in the film, at least the physical medium discussed it a lot, is he said that he kept talking about the people that were crippled after they were there, or when, I don't know that he said paraplegic at all, but basically it was implied. And in Scary Movie, I hate to bring that movie up, Scary Movie 2, you literally had someone, one of the helpers that was a paraplegic, so...
He can do it himself.
That's true.
Yes, and he showed
can take
us.
Care of himself. Thank you very much. Just don't put a black light on him at any point and catch all that nonsense. But
was there anything like scary? And it's hard to say scary so much because of what we've experienced in watching horror films. But what was some of the scarier scenes that maybe you guys had noticed in this film?
Trying to think of the scenes that I thought. I mean, I like the scene where the ectoplasm presents or whatever. I mean, the way that they have that. I feel like the stuff. I mean, it's not necessarily scary, but I feel like the scene at the end where, I mean, and in the wrong mood, it's cheesy, but I did like the scene where Roddy McDowall is like calling down, and like, the ghost of the house, and basically like, calling him a bitch to his face and saying, like, you were nothing, you're little shrimp of a man, you never, and like, I like that scene, the way that, I mean, there's a big buildup in that scene, and I did enjoy that.
It was funny how it pretty much said you used to be the shit back in the day, but now you're nothing. And it's like, whoa.
Oh, when the girl got possessed?
Yeah. I thought the possessed scenes were pretty decent, like the voice.
You got to keep in mind, too, it's a movie of its time.
No,
so,
yeah.
Like,
oh, yeah, for sure.
Movies didn't really get good with gore until about The Thing. The Thing is what really set the benchmark of what you can get away with, that audience will pay for. Because the Thing got smashed in reviews, but over time, like, it did hella good. Like, Evil Dead was the only thing really closest that caught mainstream traction that was like that.
They had movies that had gore in them around this or shortly after this time, but they were all Italian, which is a totally different, like, review board and like approval ratings and all that. So, and the blood in those movies, even though there's copious amounts, were like that bright, almost paint like blood. So I mean, that also factors in. I mean, America wasn't at the point yet to accept that sort of thing.
Yeah, no. So I don't know, anything that stands out to you, Noah?
There's a lot of good tension building with all the scenes.
Yeah,
you don't quite know what's going to happen. You don't know which way it's going to go. You don't know how dangerous the entity is too.
Oh yeah. Like when she thinks she's talking to a little boy, and we're not 100% sure about that. Did we ever find out for sure? Because she kept talking about Daniel. Oh God, I forget the last name, but it was the kid, and then they find that body. Like
it's like Vlasco or something like that. I believe is the last name.
Was that really who they found? Because there was a lot of doubt whether or not that was really him or not. And she kept saying, "But we found the body. But we found the body."
So
it was.
Go ahead.
It was somebody else, and I only know that because of the book. Like in the book, they were, it was somebody else who was originally at the party, because he mentions that in the story about how there was a party of, like, where they having the big orgy and the satanic stuff going on, like when Velasco first disappeared, and I believe it's one of the people that disappeared, during that initial thing, and not necessarily, and of course, and he was the only real main haunt of the house. But he always portrayed that he was these other spirits that kind of trick people into, kind of staying away from where he's at.
What I didn't quite understand, I was confused, is So was there a bunch of ghosts in the house then, or was that one guy just projecting into the house?
It was just him. Like it was always just him, but he had, and that's the thing that it's supposed to, in the book, that it kind of like says is that he's such a powerful entity that he can appear to be like multiple spirits at the same time. Like he's that strong.
Wow.
So, I mean,
And then no
yeah,
better way to get into somebody's, possess somebody than to get their trust. And specifically that medium who thought, oh, okay, well, it's just this little boy. We just need to put him to rest.
yeah, and then he does the even worse thing whenever you really get to thinking about it is he uses her psychic energy and of course, I mean, her body, but I mean like he uses her psychic energy to kind of empower, to build his own power up too at the same time because she's she's allowing him to use her energy to kind of like manifest so he can leave thinking it's the Daniel or whatever when it's actually the main bad guy of the house, and he's just feeding off the energy, and that's why, that's why the one psychic, being smart, has turned himself off to the house because he doesn't want that entity to be able to, use him that way.
Yeah, and he called it straight up. He's like, "You're the one being used. You're the one in danger. I'm gonna switch it up." There was something that I found to be pretty horrifying, and it was pretty common back in the 70s. And that was Mrs. Barrett's blue eyeshadow. Holy shit. That shit was intense. She's going to bed and her eyeshadow is like up to here. And I'm like, you going to clean your face? Dang.
She's trying to send the signal out to her husband.
There's a really good independent, it's not really a horror film, but it's horror adjacent film called The Love Witch that came out a few years ago. And it harkens back to this time period, and like the lady in the movie uses all those like makeup styles and stuff like that they did back the day, the blue eyeshadow and all that stuff to kind of get that 70s vibe or whatever. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, that hair bouffant she had going on too was pretty impressive. But it made her look so plain Jane. Then as soon as her hair came down and had the waves and everything, she had the look going on for sure.
The one thing that I liked as far as like a scene that kind of built it, I mean, it's not like it's relative, like we've said, just because of the time period and difference from what we're used to. But I did like that scene at the end where, they think the house is clear. They ran the machine, and then the scientist is there by himself, and all of a sudden it just starts ticking like a Geiger counter. And
oh,
he's just
yeah.
Like, no, like he just refuses to believe that it didn't work.
It was the Richter scale. I like how he was just flat out, he was screaming that he was rejecting it. And it's like, that's not how this works.
Well, some current scientists say that they can dictate what nature does, but we won't go into that.
Okay.
It's easy.
Yeah.
Just refute it.
As far as the, how'd you feel about the story itself? I mean, I'll get into a little bit more about in my rating or whatever, but like, how did you all feel about the story? Did it work for you? Was it too much of a take on the haunting to kind of register? I mean, how did you feel about that?
I didn't register so much that it was, almost exactly the haunting, but it did seem for sure to me, it was kind of the same shit, different day.
What?
Mm-hmm. In terms of a haunting story from back in this day. Because I remember we've reviewed quite a few already.
Yeah.
Of the similar time era. So, I mean, it's not like it was bad. But, yeah, it's just like, this is the same repetitive stuff. So, that's just what was going on in my head as I'm watching this. Kind of waiting for something a little bit different. I think that's probably why they threw so much innuendo in this. And so much, sexual tension on top of the scary tension. In this, it just made it somewhat different just in that aspect alone.
Funny thing about that is the book goes way farther than this did. Like, I mean, that's part of the trivia, but like, Matheson deliberately took the book, which is way more graphic, has way more, sex and gore, as it were, like, type things like that. And he ratcheted them down so that, thinking that it was better for, I don't know if it just translated better to the screen or if he was conscious of the time period that they were in. But like that's why this movie was like a PG movie, like whenever it could have very well been a hard R, just because he cut out so much of his own book when he translated it.
Well, yeah, because in this time, you could, unless you were a porno movie, you couldn't have this kind of shit mainstream. Like, this was dialed up pretty good, considering it was supposed to be a mainstream film.
What do you think, Noah? Like, how did you feel about the story itself?
I liked it. It did a really good job of tension building from the get-go, going into the place. The smoke was a little overkill, but I mean, for the most part, the directing was good. The shots were good. I'd liked. It's weird to me. There was a lot of I wouldn't say bad gaps, but there's gaps of trying to understand it. But it all makes sense at the end when you get the twist. I like the twist at the end. How it ended up being this one guy that had figured out a way to protect himself in that situation.
And the interesting thing is, I think that it's scientifically, it sounds plausible. I mean, even if it's, lead line walls, keeping in the electromagnetic residue and all that stuff. I mean, it because they say that some of those, the places that are most haunted, the people who are into that sort of thing say that like schools and all that have like this material that's like able to absorb sounds and and stuff like that, or it could just be that the material itself is aiding in that feeling that it's haunted, and that kind of the explanation made more sense that way, I thought.
Well, the thing too, when you start breaking down the science, you run into inconsistencies too. Like the whole idea of like using the lead, and it's like you could have built a Faraday cage that would do the same thing.
Yeah, but you're talking about a story that was written in like the 60s that
they had Faraday cages. They knew the understanding, because if you're going to touch a high powered voltage line, you wear a Faraday suit so your body gets a surface charge of whatever the voltage is, so you can climb on it and work on it. The information was there. I don't know if it would have resonated with the public as much either. They'd be like, what the hell's a Faraday cage? But if you just say,
oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
So
you have that
that's
aspect.
That's probably
of it.
the main reason.
Yeah.
What?
No, I'm agreeing. I'm thinking, okay, yeah, because the average person is going to be like, what?
You'd
have to sit there and explain
cage?
it, and then that's just not something that you really have time for in these type of movies.
Yeah, but then but then you're expecting the doctors to understand it. I mean, the guy that died, the doctor that died, might have understood it, but everybody else would be like, I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
I did like I agree with you. The main thing about this movie is tension building more than anything. It doesn't really, there's no real, there's maybe a couple of scares. The cat, some people might, back in the day.
Which, by the way, was played by Salem.
Now,
I don't know if you knew that. You did not have him in the list of characters. That was Salem, everybody.
And there is a rut row. The cat ends up dead, or does it? Because it's shown at the end of the movie. So what's the deal with the cat? Was it, because you see it dead in the shower, and then at the end of the movie, there's another cat looks just like it that's crawling along the walls. So, outside on the gate, outside. So
that definitely wasn't the same cat, because the cat in the room was definitely a little bit more toned, a little skinnier, had a little more muscle going on, and the cat that was outside was a little fluffier, definitely had some more meat on its bones. It's not the same cat. I'm not buying it.
The cat scene, that cat scene is very plausible. Cats are vicious, man. I was watching, I was like, yeah, that's what I expect from cats. Wild shit like that, just for no reason.
They are the animal that's most likely to eat you within a day of you dying, if they're still in the...
Cats, it doesn't matter how domesticated they are. They're predatory animals at the end of the day.
They would kill us if they could. Women are the same way. We would. Some have been successful in killing, but...
Wow.
That's why we cry a lot. We get so frustrated, because we would do it if we could.
We just want to murder.
Why would you let me kill you?
Pretty much.
As far as the one thing I wanted to say about the visuals, we've already talked about the special effects. For the movie, something you don't notice, and I didn't notice until I heard the director say it, and then upon a rewatch, is that he was specifically one of those directors that loved the tracking shot. That's where you move the dolly in with the camera, and you use that to kind of set the tone for the scene.
I noticed that.
And it's pretty well used in this movie. I mean, he has a point where he says that, you know, you can ruin a scene by, if you do it too quickly, it's more comedic. If you do it slower, it's more horror / drama. You know, there's a mix there. But there's scenes where, like, especially for Florence Tanner, where like she's like, there's a scene of her like looking like she's kind of disturbed or like thinking about what's going on in the house, and he just pans around her, and it's kind of an iconic looking shot, the way that he, you know, kind of like moves, you know, like he keeps it on her face, but he keeps the camera moving or whatever, so it's not a static shot, and I think that's interesting.
I'm kind of curious about the machine he used. So what, he put off an EMP, or what did he do? He didn't really get.
It's kind of it kind of hints that it's like a mini EMP or something. Like it just kind of like does like this electrical discharge that kind of like ionizes the air or something, and removes like the, you know, whatever energy's built up in it.
Why did they have to leave then?
Because in the movie logic, it could affect their hearts or something, you know, as far as like when the discharge went off, it could affect their, you know, like the pulse of, you know, their beating of their heart or something. So they had to be out of range of it, so they wouldn't potentially send them into, you know, AFib or whatever, you know, was going to go on with it.
I thought it was hilarious how he's rushing them out the door, and he's like, hurry now, on our way. And then he stops and he just takes like a slow, long pause look behind him. I'm like, move, motherfucker. That machine sounds like it's going to blow, because I did not know what was going to happen with this machine. But I did a little research, and legend says that 3 or 4 of those machines can do what one cell phone today can do.
Wow. Oh, my God.
Going back to our 35 computers for the...
Not just computers, like
computers for
the size of a couch.
Yeah, pretty much. When we did the Frighteners, some of the ghost scenes that they had in that one, they used 35 computers to basically edit that film.
And it gave them 1 whole terabyte of, or 1.5 terabytes of like of data they could use.
You know how much that was back then?
That's insane.
A terabyte was massive back then.
And then they used and then what did he use those computers for after that? Lord of the Rings, wasn't it?
Oh, just Lord of the Rings.
Yeah,
it's nothing big, you know.
Yeah, no big deal. But he's like, I have all these computers. Peter Jackson.
I've commented about this before, and I've got to rag on it again. Peter Jackson in the early 2000s, when he made Lord of the Rings, somehow created better CGI than they're going to have in this $1 billion Amazon, you know, TV show. I mean, they've already showed like images, and the CGI is shit compared to what he did back in the day. So, you know, just throwing that out there.
So what you're saying is they should have used 2 cell phones instead of 1.
Maybe they should have got a couple of iPhones instead of just the one that they're using to film it or whatever. So acting in this movie, I mean, if you're going to I think that Roddy McDowall steals the movie.
I think all the actors are good.
Yeah, they did good.
They're all good, but every scene that Roddy McDowall's in, it's like he draws the focus. Like, just I think a lot of his characters.
Go for it, buddy.
I was just going to say probably because his character's like the one that's like bigger than life in the movie. Like, you know, because, you know, Clive is more like reserved, you know, and then like, you know, the Gail or, you know, or Anne is, you know, she's supposed to be like, you know, quiet and, you know, meek when she's not like rubbing on, you know, statue titties and everything else that she does in the movie.
Hell yeah.
that was a pretty good scene.
Oh, and, I bet.
It was. Was these what these feel like?
Yes, they feel just like statue titties.
Let's just give, I mean, we should give an award to Roddy McDowall for, I mean, you know, like if somebody like with that, I don't know, like the way she was coming on to him, I mean, it, you know, for him, I mean, either his character was gay, which, it, you know, he could have been, like they didn't give that, you know, out, but like he could have been, or he was just, you know, very reserved and like respectful because like anybody else would be like, all right, you know, if you're down, I'm down, you know, that sort of thing.
Well, I think he knew the house was fucking with everybody. He's the only person.
Oh, he knew that. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So he slapped some sense into that bitch.
He was basically saying and knowing that it was non-consensual. So he is a gentleman, in addition to being a scholar. So there you go.
Well, she started talking shit, and wouldn't you know, he reached back like a pimp and he slapped that hoe. Okay.
And then Florence Tanner, I mean, I think that she did a great job with like the character who's kind of high on her own supply when it comes to like being religious and thinking that she's got the answers to everything, and then whenever and just she's as bad as Clive in the movie when you break it down, because like he's non-believing, doesn't believe any of it's like an actual ghost, and then she's way too like gullible and like giving into all of it, and none of them are listening to Ben when he's trying to tell them the truth of the matter.
Yeah, that's true. They were both on the far ends of the spectrum of I believe and I don't believe.
You know, what was a big thing that I liked about it was the classical acting. Like watching the actors from the movie, it's a drastic difference from what you get actors nowadays. Like
that's for sure.
The acting was hella good. Like they did a really good job of nailing the movie.
Yeah.
What do you think about it, Llareyna? You've kind of been like quiet about like the acting of it.
It's an old film. I mean, it's pretty. I'm not an actor or an actress, so I can't really.
Yeah,
speak
but
on
the whole goal is you want to feel like the movie's believable. So, and that's what the movie did. It did a good job of selling how believable it was.
Yeah, I think so, especially compared to what we get nowadays. I don't know. It gets at times it gets kind of boring to me. For some reason, I don't know. I don't do very well with
enough
older
explosions.
Films. Thank you.
Well, speaking of that, I think of the movies that we've covered, I think that this one is because the source material, the legit. I mean, this is the point where I'll just bring it up. Legend of Hell House is one of the best horror novels I've ever read. I'll put it up there like in my top 10. All the Stephen Kings I've read, everything. I mean, Stephen King was, he was inspired by Matheson. I mean, he even says that and Robert E. Howard are two of his biggest influences, and of course some H.P. Lovecraft thrown in there. But so the book, I don't feel like the horror of the book translated to the movie quite the same way. If you read that book, I just read that book I want to say 7 years ago or something, way after I was long jaded about horror movies and books and everything else, and it still had me on the edge of my seat in some scenes. Like that scene where they first discover the body plays out drastically different in the book, because it's like there's a slow build up. The person is trapped in there with the thing. It's moving toward them. It's actually crawling, and there's a lot, more stuff, and I think that this movie would be a great remake. Like now, if they didn't make it ultra woke and do all that,
they're going
to
do that. Yeah,
I know, but I'm just saying if they took it and they updated it with then put more of the horror back into it that was originally in the novel, this is one of those movies that would actually benefit that way.
I think it would translate good too, because you'd take all the technology out of it and you'd try to go from that time era too. Because what was the time era that logistically the movie took place in? It was like what, the 60s or something like that? No, it had to be like 70s. Yeah, where computers were just breaking ground.
Well, yeah, considering they had that fucking couch-sized ATM machine.
Yeah, that was when solid state was just finally hitting the market.
I think that if they were to do a remake, aside from you guys mentioning, okay, let's not go too woke with it or whatnot, same thing, it needs to be set in that time era for it to thematically make sense. Also, I wouldn't want them to go too crazy with the CGI. That's where some movies go wrong, as we've previously discussed. Sometimes they do a great job, but
if they did that movie with a combination of CGI and practical, especially like the corpse crawling after the person, or Florence, I think, is the one that gets attacked. I think it's actually maybe Ben that gets attacked by one of the bodies at some point in the story. But because there's multiple attacks that goes on. This movie cut out a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
But if you did the practical for the stuff that's actually coming after them, augmented the CGI for the stuff like the ectoplasm and the stuff like that, I think you'd have a winner on your hands. And actually, I would prefer, as opposed to what Noah was saying, instead of and agreeing with you, Llareyna, instead of setting it now, keep that 60s, vibe, but use modern technology to make it, that way, because you think about it, the woke people should enjoy a movie like this regardless, because the fact of, Florence Tanner is like a female minister. I mean, that right there is like, for its time, was like pretty big. I mean, like that was, a pretty big thing. And so I mean, it's one of those things where I feel like I feel like it would do better if it was like a new movie, but like a period piece, like set in that time period.
See, I didn't even think about that part of it, of her being in the position of power, especially back then. That had to be super abnormal.
Yeah, it's a pretty big thing for that time or whatever. Anne's the only stereotypical character of the bunch, being the, just the mousy housewife that turns into a freak on a leash, as it were, after the her husband goes to bed. But I mean, that stuff could be played. I mean, there could be, they could work something into it without going full on woke. Like they could even work in her repressed sexuality for the time period, into it. And that would play into their whole thing. But the problem is they don't know subtlety. Yeah. And that's the reason that, there's nothing wrong with, because this movie was probably considered woke for its time. But it's one of those things it's one of those things where, if you work it in like subtly and you get your point across that way, then it's a lot better than just beating somebody over the head with it. That's why they say sometimes the left can't meme. It's because they don't know that the meme itself is not, it holds the nugget of truth you're trying to, but it like gives you like, in a palatable way, as opposed to just saying, here's a bowl of shit, I want you to eat it. They kind of, work it in that way.
I could see them making all the characters lesbians, and then we'd have I think I downloaded the wrong movie.
There might be one, to be honest. It's
The Legend of Whorehouse.
Pretty much, yeah.
And Evil Madam was the one who originally owned the place, and she's the one that's the ghost that's making all the women strip their clothes off and commit all these terrible lesbian.
The whores on Haunted Hill.
Music, I mentioned that it was the electronic score. I don't feel like the music really stood out in this movie.
It was your typical 70s.
You know what? It actually reminded me a little. There was moments where I almost got a little bit of Thrasher vibe.
Wow, yeah.
The Entity.
Well, especially at the beginning. Yeah.
It had that going on.
What was that? That was kind of out of place at the very beginning. I thought it was. Like, it was a good beat. Like, it would have done very well in the scene where they're getting ready to find, quotation mark, Daniel's body, But
oh, yeah.
Right at the beginning, they kind of had it, and it was just them looking at each other like, boom, 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 boom. And I'm like, or why, though? What was to gain from that? I'm like, I think it was just something new they had discovered. They're like, ooh, let's check this out right here.
Turn down for what?
Yeah.
That would, if there was a modern remake of this, that would definitely be it. Like, that would be played in the background or something. That'd be awful. So you want to get into the trivia? You got anything else you want to discuss about the movie?
I want to get into the trivia.
I actually want to know, what other older movies do you suggest of like that are kind of quality of this era?
Quality of this era, I'd have to.
This movie was hella good. I could rewatch this movie. Actually, I liked it. I thought it was.
I'm sure you could with the fucking statue titties.
Really? I could watch any modern movie and see titties all day long.
Yeah, but something about statue titties, they're harder.
I would have to sit down and think about it. I'm sure I've got some that I would recommend, and I'll try to, send that to you, or send that by Llareyna at some point so you can but this is one that, of the time period that kind of stands out. But there were others that were kind of along the same lines, as far as how they did them. So, but I just the top of my, head here, like I don't know any that really stands out to me. I feel like the Hammer horror movies were in the same vibe as this, and they would have been good and they were around the same time period, 60s, 70s, and you have classic actors in those. One of the Lord of the Rings, actors in particular was in that, that played Saruman, but they're the only ones that's coming to my mind right now, like off the top of my head.
Yeah, I just haven't watched a lot of horror movies in the 70s. I've always kind of shaded it off like they ain't good. And then I watched this one. I was like, this is hella good.
You were high as balls.
Yeah, it was still a good movie. I don't care how high it was. It was hella good. The actors did a good job of selling the movie. Like they nailed what the intent was.
Yeah, they got across the tension that I think that was that they was intended because when he cut back all the more out there stuff from the novel, that's kind of what he was more going for with it.
Yeah, I liked how the movie, you couldn't really quite tell what was going on up until the very, very end twist. Like you had information, but not enough to really figure out what was going on.
Well, that's the one thing I like over the original Haunting movie. I mean, I like the original Haunting, the black and white one, although, I mean, it's kind of dull in parts, and they don't really show anything, and it's kind of hinted it's more in the Eleanor's head or whatever, but... Oh, I
didn't realize this is an actual remake?
It's not a remake. It's just he kind of took that. That's what I was getting ready to say, is that like he took that base and he said, well, I want more stuff to actually happen. And I like the fact that there actually is a threat. They are getting attacked this entire, somebody's getting attacked through most of this movie, whether it be, Anne getting possessed. Ben's not getting attacked because he knows how to block it out. But even Clive is getting attacked and he doesn't even realize he's getting physically attacked through Florence just because... she's allowing herself to be, influenced so much by the house. And since Clive is one that's mentally shut off from any of that stuff and he can't be affected that way, the house is physically attacking him through her, through most of it. I mean, he's got knives thrown at him.
Oh,
and, and all that stuff through most of the movie. So the one who's not getting attacked is Ben, and that's just because he's been there before and he nearly died in the process. And he knows how to shut it out.
Do you think that this is where that band Florence and the Machine got their name?
That's interesting because the Machine that very well could be.
I mean, both were useless in the movie, but not entirely useless, but they didn't get to complete their tasks.
And neither did Anne.
But speaking of Anne, Reverend Dr. Death has one ghostly statue titty right behind him up on that wall. He's got a boob light.
I got a boob light.
Did you not know you had you have a boob light?
Oh yeah, the nipple up there, yeah.
Anyways, back to the trivia.
All right. The original novel was set in New England with an American team of psychic investigators, but the storyline was changed to fit the movie's production in England with British actors playing the investigators.
Oh, cheerio.
Do you know what I'm curious? When was the book originally written?
I don't really remember that.
You
want to look that up while I'm reading?
I'll Google it right now.
Yeah, I'm really curious because the book did the book used or cover the use of electronics in the book?
Yes. Yeah, it actually did. I mean, it was told from a little bit more of a, I don't know, I feel like it was, more esoteric, like, they kind of like Matheson was kind of making some things up. But the funny thing is, a lot of those, writers back in the day, they made things up that later became real. So it was like, it was one of those things where it was like he kind of envisioned what it might be like and then, kind of wrote it.
Okay, so the book came out in 1971. That's when it was published, so maybe 1970?
Very shortly.
Yes.
Okay.
Very shortly before this.
The original movie that you kind of hinted on, the one that's black and white, what was the name of that movie?
It's just The Haunting. It's the Shirley Jackson, The Haunting, which is The Haunting of Hill House or whatever. But like Matheson, referenced that as being like, he saw that or at least read Shirley Jackson's novel, and he was like, I like the basis for that, but I want more to be happening. So that's kind of where his story came from. That's why he called it Hell House versus Hill House. It's even got that reference.
Yeah.
The Unsettling Tales of Emmerich Belasco. So it's Belasco.
Okay.
I've been saying Belasco the entire
I
time.
thought it was Velasco.
She wrote a B. What are you talking about?
That's true. I know what the B was for,
Emmerich
bitch.
Belasco's acts of debauchery and evil at Hell House were loosely based on stories involving occultist Aleister Crowley. And that's whenever he says the movie sadism, necrophilia, bestiality. I forgot about that part. That's even, it's pretty bad too. So that cat might have had reasons to be mad, guys. Let's just say that. They had.
I bet you the cat has monkeypox.
Oh.
Maybe the cat was trying to attack her because she had Belasco inside of her, literally or physically at that time, and it just wanted it payback for the fact that of what maybe happened to it or its ancestors.
Oh.
The cat's is like, you see the size of this butthole? What are you trying to do?
Gross.
The old books that Ann Barrett sees lined up in the cabinet are titled From Left to Right, Obsessive Acts and Religious Practices by Sigmund Freud.
Oh.
The Worship of Priapus by Richard Payne. And by the way, priapism is what they call it nowadays whenever like you take Viagra and like your erection won't end and they have to go actually drain the blood from it to keep you from losing your, dick, So the worship of Priapus, you're basically worshiping an erection. So
yeah.
That's kind of interesting. By Richard Payne Knight. The Psychology of Sex by H.H. Ellis. Sin and Sex, Conation Volition, and then Sex and Celibacy by T. Long. The Anatomy of Abuses by Philip Stubbs. And then Phallic Worship and Autoerotic Phenomena and Adolescence by K. Menzies.
God.
Those are some. I mean, even the names of some of the writers, T. Long and Philip Stubbs. I mean, come on, they knew what they were doing.
Yeah, Dick Payne. Well, it's technically Richard Payne, but Funny how he wrote a book. Yeah.
The new version of this would have something by T-Pain in the background.
Gross.
Writer Richard Matheson toned down the graphic violence and more intense sexual scenes of his novel to give the screenplay for the film a more brooding atmosphere. So there you go.
Okay.
He didn't want it to be out there so that he could build up the tension. But that's what I'm saying. I think a remake could do very well by going the opposite route and actually taking that stuff from the novel and like making it, because I think that would fit with today's audience better.
Oh yeah. And it would only be rated PG-13 in this times.
Probably, yes. And then somebody would probably start playing, WAP or whatever as the movie started, whenever the title scene comes up.
Oh.
Early in the film, in her and her husband's bedroom, Anne Barrett is seen holding the novel Sentimental Education by 19th century French author Gustave Flaubert. The novel was no doubt deliberately chosen for her to hold by the filmmaker, since much of the novel is about passion, sex, and desire, making it fit in well with the highly sexualized and erotic nature of much of the film. It also foreshadows her later scenes and hints at her repressed sexuality. So she was reading some sexy stuff even before she went into the house, folks.
Yeah.
So I don't get it. Was he not nailing her, and that what it was, or was it that she was the ghost? Like it never really kind of fully encapsulates.
He wasn't giving her the kind of stuff she wanted. Like, well, even if they were having sex, I think she wanted like it turned up a little bit. So.
Yeah,
and the ghost brought that out.
Her being sexually repressed is basically a way for any kind of spirit to possess her. Basically, any kind of sadness or weakness.
See, but her character didn't really come off as sexually repressed. That kind of gets lost in translation.
That wasn't. I mean, it doesn't. I don't know. It's weird because because
he's a logical guy, and so he's using like reason. Like he there's not stigma blocking his thought process, so you think out of all the characters she'd be the one that would not be repressed.
I mean, you would think. I think he was. I just got the impression that he was so wound up in everything he was doing. He's getting sent to all these places, and yeah, she follows him and everything. But women also can shut that off for a long time. But
he's
then
in the back room jerking off the ectoplasm.
Yeah, pretty much with ectoplasm, probably as using it as lotion. Yeah. And women can put that away for a while, but then when it starts to get bad, it starts to affect them emotionally more than anything. Shit starts fucking with their mind too. And so she was just an open portal for any kind of spirit to come in and fuck her world up, literally and physically.
Yeah, she and like I said, I think it was a combination of he was out doing his his stuff or whatever and focused on his like job more than he was on her, and it was a combination of that plus the fact that I really get the vibes from this movie that like even if they have sex, like she's not into just playing like missionary whatever. It's like she wants some harder stuff going on. If you
she wants anal
that way, BDSM or whatever it is.
Well, and let's not forget, clearly the actor is older than the actress. I don't know by how much, but it shows in the film. Like she's younger for sure. And I know they did that a lot in this time era, but like that shit can affect you,
Successful older men want to nail young, hot things.
Well, she's young and hot, and she's
Nothing's
not getting
changed.
nailed, so not in the way she wants to be anyways.
Actor Michael Goh spent a very brief time on the production, which is why he is uncredited. Aside from his short appearance in the film's finale, I think he's the one that shows up as they're leaving or something. Goh's only other contributions to the film were a few recorded lines of dialogue. He might also be the guy that delivers the equipment to him, like, in like middle of it or something, but he's not in it very much. That's the reason I didn't list.
I'm not going to lie. That was going through my head. How in the hell did they get the equipment in the house? Because I was looking at the front door, and then I was looking at the equipment. I was like, how'd this happen? What magic took place for this to get in here?
Well, the story has more time or has a little bit more about that. I think it occurs over maybe if it's the same time period, then it goes more into detail. But it came in parts, like sections that could fit through the door, and then he had to assemble them. Okay, and and that's kind of the reason why he was pissed off whenever Florence went over there and was like, "Oh well, I just want to look at it. I'm gonna beat the shit out of this machine." It's like, and which is funny because that goes along with the Florence and the Machine thing. That honestly was probably what they watched that scene and they're like, okay, we're making that's the name of our band.
There you go, folks. I have let the cat out of the bag.
And that crazy pussy will just keep on attacking you too. There you go.
You got to beat it down with the broom.
Richard Matheson wanted Richard Burton and Elizabeth Taylor to star in this film. I don't think Elizabeth Taylor would have been a good fit for Anne.
She was gone. She was done. Let sleeping dogs lie.
In the 70s?
Yeah, she was. That was. I don't think she was.
She was. I think the 70s was the start of her like very bad addiction period. If I remember,
yeah, she was doing the disco scene.
I think it would have just been too much. Like some of those actors and actresses back in the day just were very highfalutin and very.
Wait, how is that any different from now?
Well, that too, but I'm just saying.
Now it's just transparent.
Yeah, but
they go on Twitter and say some dumb shit.
Yeah,
like,
but at least they pretend to be a little bit more down to earth. Versus back then, they were like, "No, I want this, 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 this." I
think some actors are down to earth, but a majority of them are not.
No, I agree with you.
And it's transparent for everybody,
Oh God, and it's very well known now who isn't. Like you hear real fast who's easy to work with in Hollywood and who's not. So it's just a matter if they're worth it for the production. Clearly, she wasn't. So
we know Ezra Miller isn't anymore. There's that.
But apparently you can do all kinds of really bad stuff, and as long as you apologize and you're uber rich and all that, then you can get away with it because that's all that's happening with that.
I didn't realize he was running multiple cults around the U.S.
Oh yeah, he's got all kinds of stuff on the back burner. I don't think this is all a PR stunt just so they can get the Flash out there and released, and without it totally, it's still going to bomb, but or at least I think it will. But I mean, it's just a way for them to say, okay, we're still making this movie, but we've got to have you apologize so at least it looks like we made an attempt. Because I mean, everybody's been bringing that up about Warner Brothers. They're like, when are you going to call your boy back in? Like he's off the reservation at this point, literally and figuratively, because he stole that one girl from the reservation. But
well,
and so
oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and that's their way. They're just like, well, just have him issue an apology. That'll be all that we need.
So back in the day, it was bad to try to cure someone's gayness, I guess you could say, but they're trying to send him to rehab to cure his potential addiction and I don't know, the fact that he likes people underage. And I don't know what he's doing with these women with kids.
Technically, he's non-binary, so he doesn't have an age or whatever the fuck that is.
No,
that's what he said. I'm non-binary. What is that? Is that a scapegoat, or is that something serious? What the fuck are we talking about?
So you can seek treatment for that, okay, and then it's just okay.
So how's that working in the treatment? They either give you a 1 or a 0.
I don't know what their plans are with that one. But okay, my next question is, do you think these women are hypnotized or mesmerized by him? Because everyone's like, oh my God, we go to these places where these women
It's
are, and
money
they
and
seem
power.
like
Yeah.
that's what I was thinking. I was like, it's just I think that they're willingly being involved.
You got a bunch of young girls.
They're
money's
just throwing
being,
their kids at them.
Yeah, like that's how people operate. Realistically, I won't say everybody, but if you're in the city and you're attached to anything that you admire, entertainment, and you get some fucking A-list actor flashing himself and his money, talking about all this,
It's money
and power. When you get the cut in front of the line everywhere you go, that's kind of a big deal.
I don't think they're going anywhere, though. I think they're just staying in their fucking
But
whatever
it's the
he has them.
potential that if he does
That's
take me
true.
somewhere, we can cut in line.
That was a tangent.
And there's potential that he might give them a massive payout whenever he does the
Correct.
inevitable and like somehow messes their kid up. So there's that.
Come on. You didn't touch my daughter. What the fuck?
Oh.
While the film was released in the U.S. with a PG rating, in the U.K. it was given an X rating at first.
Whoa.
Wow.
What kind of fucking censors did they have in the U.K. to look at this movie and say, "Nah, this ain't going"?
Yeah,
work?
because
I mean,
aren't
you
they a lot
know
more
what?
like liberal with us when it comes to sex?
With nudity,
the sex,
period.
yeah.
You know
Yeah.
what? There was a scene where she was laying in bed and the scars on her chest looked like nipples.
Oh yeah, I did see that too. It was like right at the top, and
Yeah.
it looked like a nipple. And I was
I
like,
was
oh
watching,
wait,
it's
that's
like,
where
Is
she
that
got.
a titty hanging out? No, that's a scar.
Wow.
It looked like it.
But the thing is, the UK would be more like, okay, those cat scratches are just too violent. We're gonna give it an X rating. I mean, they're more likely to do that than
Yeah.
they are. I mean, about tits being on screen. I mean, let's be honest. I mean,
Yeah, because
I don't
fucking what's her
understand
name?
that.
Mrs. Barrett was fucking tuning in Tokyo on the fucking statue. So
once James H. Nicholson left AIP, American International Pictures, to become an independent producer, this and Dirty Mary, Crazy Larry, 1974, turned out to be his only post-AIP productions, as he was stricken by a brain tumor and died shortly thereafter.
oh wow.
That's terrible. Those are that other Dirty Mary, Crazy Larry is also another film by the same director that directed this. So it was kind of like they worked together, back to back on those.
What was that movie about? I'm kind of curious.
I think it's more like a satirical, like slice of life type thing, but I don't really know because I didn't really study that. I just know he mentioned it quite a bit, that he followed it up, and he used some of the stuff he learned on this movie to kind of make that one. The shot of the cat in the opening credits sequence, 5 minutes and 31 seconds in, was later used for Granada Nighttime. The Granada Nighttime indent on the ITV network in the United Kingdom in 1988. So they took a scene from this movie and used it as their like little, like this is our network, identifying, picture or whatever. That's kind of weird. Like,
Wow. Okay.
Random. It's like we like that cat, so let's do it.
A side note: you ever miss on how they used to do back in the day when well, how old are you now?
Same age as us.
Yeah, so remember back in the
Yeah.
day when every Friday and Saturday there'd be a late night local network that played horror movies.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we talked about that.
Yeah, I missed that time of when things like that were on. And I remember the one out here, you could actually call in because it was the parts where he was doing the thing was live, so you can call in between commercials when he has this little thing, and they were taking calls that night.
We never had a big enough city around here to have horror hosts, but I think like the Midwest had, some of those that are even, still out there or whatever. So, it was, there was a lot of them around the country though, especially, like the coast or whatever had them. I know like Florida, New York, California, they all had their own. And Chicago, I think, was the big one for the Midwest.
Yeah, they don't have that
Kinda
in
had
them
the one
their
you call
parts.
in, but But we did have a TV, like that's what they would run at night just on the locals or whatever. It was like once it got past 11 or 12 or whatever the news, I think the news ended at around 12, 11:30 or 12, you would see Frankenstein or something on, they always showed like old black and white horror movies.
See, I think that you could do so much with that idea now, but the thing is, there's IP locked down on all the movies, so you can't play them all without getting the rights. It'd be awesome to reintroduce that idea of playing, because you can do a YouTube channel every Friday night. You're playing horror movies from like 10 till 2, and it's live, so you can call in and talk in real time, like do commercial breaks and the whole nine.
Well, we know for sure they could play Night of the Living Dead.
Oh, can you?
Yeah.
Absolutely can.
It has no copyright. So.
That'd be cool for you guys to do a live stream one night and do that movie.
Oh, God, we could, huh?
And you can get people to call in and everything, too.
That's true. There's only one cut of that Richard Rubenstein did, where he added in some extra scenes, which are all supposed to be shitty as hell, and we'll get into that when we cover in zombie season. But like that you can't show because he did copyright that version, but the original version, unfortunately for Romero and his family, that was not copyright. So I mean, it's free game.
That'd be kind of cool to do that.
I feel like there is, so there's a thriller channel on, there's a thriller, a horror, a terror, black cinema, which I think, I thought it was mostly scary movies, but it could just be black people. But there,
just like white people had their own westerns, black
yes.
people got their own inner cities.
But anyway, so they have 3 channels on Pluto alone.
Well, Pluto just added Alter. So Alter is now on Pluto.
I don't know what Alter is.
You ever watch it? You ever follow the Alter channel on YouTube?
No.
Reverend?
I've never watched it.
Oh, dude, it's awesome. So it's all independent, small, like 10, maybe 15 minutes at the max horror, small movies.
Speaking of that, Noah, you might be one. We might get you involved in this because that's your thing, anyways. We talked about doing like mini episodes each week that like releases like middle of the week where we review those.
Oh, those things are awesome. I'll sit down and binge like with the kids. I'll binge like 2 hours of like a total of 15 movies.
We're talking about like taking like just one 10-minute video, like it's kind of like, what did we say that it was, Slasher Pass? Isn't that what we decided?
Oh yeah, Slasher
on
Pass.
Yeah, like you just give it a quick rating, like not like, any 5 out of 5 or anything. Would you watch it? Do you recommend it? Slasher Pass, kind of like a Tinder thing, like, as you're swiping through.
That'd be awesome, man. I just like the way the market's set up now because you have so many independent movies and the equipment cost is so low that they can just turn movies out without a big studio production. And then
they have better cameras in their phones than filmmakers had back in the 70s.
No, not just like for editing. Like you can get by with the laptop now and do amazing editing. Like it's gotten so good now.
So for reference, I'm looking at Pluto Horror right now, and I know later tonight they're playing Friday the 13th. Quarantine is playing right now. Insidious is playing in the middle of the day. Their terror channel has The Wailing. Slender, which I'm guessing is about Slender Man.
Yeah, the movie sucked.
When a Stranger Calls. They just have multiple things.
I want to say Alter's the new one they added.
But I have seen the kids watch a channel where it's playing older horror films.
Yeah.
And they fell asleep watching almost like black and white horror films.
Some of those are really good still.
Those options are out there. It's just with the YouTube, like the way the copyright strikes go. I've seen other channels where if they do any kind of commentary, they film themselves as they're watching the movie, and they tell you when to boot it up. They tell you what like scene they're on, like when they like the line for MGM gets ready to roar, and then they tell you to press play, and then they comment over the movie as it plays that way because that's the only real way. Because they had for a while like you could keep like a small like image of it down in the bottom of the screen as long as it was very minimized, but even then I think they started striking people for that, so you got to be real careful if it's got a copyright.
If you guys stream it through the Black Magic box, I can make an overlay that goes around, then I can drop you and Raina's image right on the screen, so you might be able to get around the copyright because of the bordering and the IP technology, the IP change. I think there's a certain amount of modifications you got to do where you can get around it.
All right, well, we'll look into it.
and I think you can't be playing the audio from the movie, really. I think because that's one of the things. You can think copyright allows you to review or make comments or whatever, but I don't think you can use the regular audio from the movie that way.
Okay.
Boo.
What do you mean, boo?
Not you.
That's interesting to talk about. I mean,
No. I'm talking about boo that we can't use the audio. Oh
I think that'd be the
way out of
best.
context.
I think that'd be awesome. Turn this lights in down here in the studio dark and have my wife watch scary movies.
Oh yeah, that's gonna be a real good time.
It would be. It'd be entertaining for people to watch because you like freak out over scary stuff.
During the heyday of VHS, Legend of Hell House was considered highly collectible, and that actually continues to this day because I've got the Scream Factory edition of this, which I think is out of print now, but even it is like going for pretty decent money. So, I mean, it's one of those movies that's always been like very rarely produced, but like highly sought after because people do appreciate it for what it is. But it doesn't have enough of a following to keep it in circulation all the time.
Oh, okay.
Despite the main characters being British, in real life, Roddy McDowall was the only cast member to have been born in Britain. Clive Revill was from New Zealand. Pamela Franklin was born in Japan.
Wow.
And Gail Honeycutt hailed from America. So she was putting on an accent through the movie. Anne was.
It wasn't terrible.
No, but she wasn't in it enough, really. I mean, it had enough lines to where it made that much of a difference. Whereas the style of the Belasco house in the novel was similar to 1920s America, the style shown in the movie had a more gothic look. So getting back to that more gothic, haunted mansion type thing or whatever. But like, I think that the one from the novel is kind of interesting too, because it's one of those big palatial 1920s estates, and those are kind of interesting, right?
Yeah.
They factor into a lot of H.P. Lovecraft stuff. Filmed during October and November of 1972. This thing was only filmed over the course of 2 months. That's crazy.
Oh, shit, yeah.
And I think that the director made a comment on that. It was because they gave him they gave him the ultimatum that because of the budget and everything else, he had to have a quick turnaround. So that's the reason he went through and did what he did with it, like real quick. And speaking of something that just came back to me now, he commented on the scene where he was really proud of this. The scene where at the beginning of it, Roddy McDowall is being introduced, where it shows him standing in front of the train, and then the train like goes past, and it shows Clive's character and then Anne, like behind them in the car or whatever, there to pick him up. That scene, I mean, does it seem like it's much now in the age where they can like edit this stuff pretty quick? But the fact that he was able to get that camera to automatically focus directly from the foreground to the background on that car, and keep everything, just as soon as it happens just as soon as the train is passed, is pretty big, camera, pretty big effect as far as the camera work goes. So he's pretty proud of that. Closing credits, all characters and events in this film are fictitious. Any similarity to actual events or persons living or dead is purely coincidental. So they put one of those in the movie or whatever. But they also have like an intro to this movie that says something about like I believe that they had somebody authenticate and say that the paranormal investigative process they use in the movie is like one of the most accurate of the time period, because we talked about the hypnosis and Stir of Echoes, but this movie is supposed to have like one of the most accurate paranormal investigative things in it,
I guess, for its time.
For its time, obviously. I mean, and one of the things I remember the director saying in his commentary about the movie is that he actually truly believed in like the ability of mediums to like generate ectoplasm the way that she does in this movie, and he actually got a bunch of real mediums and had them attempt it, but none of them could produce it on film to the point where they that way that he wanted to look. So that's the reason he made it all up in the camera and all that, and with that route. But he tried his best to get actual ectoplasm, like real ectoplasm, like on film. That's what he that was his goal. Like he wanted to be the first person to catch that, and he never could get it to work.
He died doing the Lord's work.
So ratings. I mean, this is kind of odd since we this video versus the podcast and the Stir of Echoes rating is on this. But what did you feel about Stir of Echoes? And I know Noah wasn't on the discussion, but I know he's also has kind of like a negative viewing of the movie too. So I want to go with him first and kind of see what he thought of it.
Well, my husband has turned into a ghost and disappeared. So it's just you and I right now, which is funny. But I do want to say, as we're at these ratings, hey, go listen to us. I mean, go listen to the podcast. So we're moving forward. We're going to do video, but hey, go check them out. Stir of Echoes. We just did that one. It is released. It's out and about anywhere you listen to podcasts, all the main platforms. It's there. So since the hubby's not here, do you want me to go first? Do you want to go first?
I'll go first. I give Stir of Echoes a 4 out of 5. I really enjoy that movie. I've watched that movie so many friggin' times over the years, and I still enjoy it every time. I mean, it's got its problems, and that's the reason I drop it a whole point or whatever as far as the plot, some of the extraneous stuff with the black cop psychic and all that stuff. But as far as the story and like what's conveyed on the screen, and like we talked about with the acting with Kevin Bacon, 4 out of 5. I enjoy that movie every time I watch it.
Yeah. I'm actually in agreement with you. Exactly. I'm a 4 out of 5. Definitely had its things that we could pick apart, little things here and there, questions that I had, considering, remember we talked about them being kind of a poor family, but yeah, here he is not working, spending all his money on orange juice, no food in the house for the family whatsoever, whatever. Yeah. Those things aside, finding out about the hypnotism scenes and how it affected people, and how every time I watch this movie, it affects me and I get a headache. Second time I watched it, I got a migraine, and which makes me, it's not that I wouldn't watch the movie again. I'm a little fearful to watch it again since it's happening every time. But I think that kind of adds a really cool effect.
Pretty big thing.
Yeah, it makes me want to see the movie. Like, oh, is this going to happen again? This is legit, So it made it that kind of much a cooler experience for me. And just to kind of recap, folks, they had to change the hypnotism scene in this movie because some people were actually getting hypnotized. And so they had to add some sound effects or whatnot to kind of prevent that from happening. That's how good the actress, which is Llareyna, I forgot her last name, did it.
Douglas.
Llareyna Douglas. So, and we don't know for a fact. I should almost watch the movie again just to see if it does happen. I would not.
You might have to skip through that scene every time you watch it if you watch it from here on out.
So I get a headache every time I watch the movie, and so we don't know if that's related or not. So that's where we're at with it. Hubby actually just walked in right now, so let's see what his feelings were. Babe, you watched Stir of Echoes just a few days ago. We both just rated it. We both gave it a 4. What would you rate it and why?
I like Kevin Bacon, so this is the only reason I gave it a decent rating.
Oh, he was one of those housewives watching him dig through the backyard, No,
Kevin Bacon's just always been a badass actor. Like, I'm a fan of him, and it's just I gave the movie like a 3.
Okay.
I didn't.
No, I'm not.
I think they were trying to encapsulate a community.
Oh yeah.
And I think Kevin Bacon did a good job of kind of selling you how people are from like a more of a blue collar area, but I don't know. It's just the rest of the cast didn't really sell me on it. I have to be bought into the story for me to like it.
Okay.
And I just
That's
don't.
fair.
I don't feel like it happened. Like the 2 characters I liked was the sister-in-law. She's a pretty badass actor.
Yeah.
I don't know her name off the top of my head.
Llareyna.
Yeah.
Llareyna. What again? We just said
Douglas.
it.
Douglas.
But I will give to him. Kevin Bacon's wife is pretty hot in the movie.
Oh, that's so funny. I did not think she was.
Really?
At all. Yeah, I thought she looked like a younger Sally Field.
A hotter version of that.
Well, yeah, because she's younger, and she was kind of plain. And I told the Reverend I absolutely hate tiny titties. I cannot stand them. The guys like all titties, so that's fine. I'm not a guy, so.
Guys like hand.
The thing.
Go for it.
The thing about her as an actress, though, that I think that's more attractive is her personality in the film. Like, I mean, she's
a good wife.
Just one of those, like, she's a good wife. She's, like complimentary to him, and like she's also got that, like, I'm not gonna take any shit attitude too. So like it all equals out to where it's like, okay, that adds to it. She's kind of like the cool mom or something.
All that despite tiny titties.
The story was just like the whole supernatural part didn't bother me, but like the two dads in on getting the girl covered up, like that was like kind of a stretch. I was like, I don't know, even in that community, I have a hard time getting my head around like that kind of story.
Well, one, it was a huge burden on one, and for the other one, it was just like, he had goals in life. He had a life he dreamt of, and he didn't want anything getting in the way for himself and his son. So, and he thought,
well, and that was for both of them, because I think both of their sons were like, had looked like they might have a ticket, like as far as a sports scholarship or something. And it was more about their, trying to keep their sons out of the, losing all of that, momentum that they had, more so than themselves. I think that really cemented it. I mean, that's the reason, we brought that up in the last episode. If you can give any sympathy to those two guys whatsoever, it was because they were trying to cover up for their sons, because they didn't want their sons' lives ruined, even though by all accounts their sons deserved it. I mean, for what they did, obviously. So
my problem, I have a hard time wrapping my head around, because what was it, like 20? The movie's based 20 years ago, basically 20, maybe 30 years ago.
No,
that's what the time frame of the movie.
Okay, I'm not sure. Anyways, go
yeah,
ahead.
it was in '99. I mean,
yeah,
it
so
was
like
20 years ago. Yeah,
people were way more decent and stand up back then than they are now. So nowadays, like if you did that, I could maybe wrap my head around that, because just seeing how some of the people are and they treat their kids as nothing wrong. But like back then, I just, that's the part of when I was watching, I was like, I don't know if this storyline holds up, because I can't really, because they're not from rich families.
This is going to blow your mind then, Noah. The book that it's based on, which has that plot point, I think, was based in 58. So it goes back even farther than that.
Yeah, but does it have the families as well off? Because in this community, everybody's pretty much like,
they're not well off. They're hardworking.
That's what I'm saying, though.
Yeah.
So that's why it doesn't work.
Well, they wanted to be
that way, I think.
Yeah,
Oh,
they
really?
wanted to be well off. They wanted to, like, if we turn this neighborhood around, the cop was talking about owning property and being able to retire soon. I mean, like,
yeah, they were trying to gentrify their neighborhood, basically.
Yeah,
the whole gist of the conversation there, and they keep talking about how it's a good, Frank at least talks about how it's a good neighborhood, and how, they want to, kind of keep that going that way. I mean, so they're trying to bury their ugly secrets so that they, it doesn't look like anything bad ever happens there, so they can keep building it up that way.
Keep that image of a happy life,
It kind of goes along with Hot Fuzz, if you've ever seen that movie. They have that commentary. It's like it's the idyllic little, rural town, but they're actually killing any like bad members of society off, just so that it stays that way.
That was the best when Simon Pegg had that epiphany, like, oh, you're not killing these people for real issues, you're killing them for infractions.
Yeah. It's like, they had a shitty front lawn, so we had to let them go,
All right. So shall we move on to
Legend of Hell House? Yep. Rating on that, I'm going to start this one out. For me, it's a 3.5 out of 5. I appreciate the tension in it. I like the acting, like we've discussed, and I appreciate the visuals that we talked about.
Mm-hmm. The statue titties.
Yeah, especially the scene with Anna and the titties. I mean, that stands out quite a bit. But
it's timeless.
I've read the book, and I know what that story could have been, and I know I shouldn't rate the movie based on that, but it's hard not to, because that book is freaking amazing.
But we're gonna.
And I just and the book's a 5 out of 5, and I've got to knock this down, because it's like a pale version, like a pale shadow of what the book is.
Yeah. All right, hubby, what'd you think of it?
What I think, I like to rate movies based on the era they were made. I think it gives you better reference, and I think this held up hella good. Even like watching it today, it's awesome. I could rewatch this movie again. I think the acting is just so good in it that it really sells you on the movie and what's going on with the movie. I gave it like a 4.5.
Wow.
And
cool.
we do use the time era to rate movies. That is a thing because we have had newer films that we're like you expect so much better and they just fucking failed and you're just like
well, it's not even that they fell, it's that they failed and they used $200 million. That's well, let's really be honest.
I don't give any quarter to new movies because they have no right to fail as spectacularly as they do, given the fact that movies like this did what they could with the time period and everything else, and visually, I think this movie knocks it out of the park for what they attempted at that time. So
this everything, the plot twist and the story, like everything kind of unraveling, and you don't quite know where reality's at or what's going on, or if the doctor's right or the girl's right. You don't really know right up into the very end.
Right off the bat, I want to bring up the fact that the Changeling was near this time era. Was that more closer to the 80s?
It was a few years removed. It was like 79 is when they filmed it, so It was about 6 years removed from this.
Okay, and there wasn't any like special effects really in that film. It was all sound.
No. It
was all acting. It was, you didn't see anything, and I rated that movie pretty highly.
You rated that like a 4.5 or something, and it was up there. It was pretty high, yeah.
And this is an older film. This film to me was a snooze fest. I'm giving it a 2.5.
I hate you.
Barely
I'm
held.
married to you.
It barely held my attention. I'm not saying it's not an okay movie, and definitely it is a movie that people should watch. It definitely has some interesting things, but I laughed in this movie more than I was scared, and I know it's a different time frame, but I get scared from old movies. Like, I have seen older scary
I'm gonna fucking get the cat to attack you so you can really drive home fucking rear horror. What the hell?
That shit was hilarious.
I thought I laughed about the cat part, but it was also a good, like fucked up moment. Like, the cat was going vicious.
Her pussy was going crazy.
Yeah, it was relentless,
I
dude.
The cat scene just because I knew I was, as soon as it started, I'm like, this is scary. They got this directly from this movie.
Well,
like, there's no.
And in true Llareyna fashion, I was sleeping while he was watching it, and I heard the cat scene happen. So when I watched it again, I was like, oh, I know what's gonna happen. I mean, you kind of know just by seeing the scene, whatnot, but there was some good effects in the movie. It almost pushes that. Maybe I'll give it a 2.7. It pushes it up. It had decent effects in it, especially for its time era, but there was not enough action to keep my attention. There was a couple times I'm sitting straight up and I'm falling asleep. So I didn't look at my phone, though. I'll give it that. I wanted to see everything because I didn't want to miss anything, and yeah, it didn't do it for me. There
were so many good parts, like when she gets kind of semi-possessed and she starts speaking in the other voice. That's I thought that. How many movies up until then really nailed that kind of idea?
How many times in a day do I get so pissed off at you about my voice changes?
Not like that.
I'm not used to it.
Really?
I do have to give credit to the sound design team on that, because it seems like, we're so used to it now, but like just the way they did in that movie, I mean, it would be chilling to hear it like for that effect for the first time,
yes,
where her voice drops like an octave and a half or something, and it's like, and she's speaking that way.
Well, like she was saying, that whole part where she's like, "You weren't shit." You were shit back when you were 18. You ain't nothing now. And so, but the look on his face when she hits him with that is just like, whoa, dude.
And he didn't react because obviously he knew what was up.
See, nowadays, after that scene, if you cut that movie nowadays, that guy would be in the bathroom crying. She says it about me.
That's true. It's like, she hurt my feelings.
Yes.
It's so much. And you got to, we've got to give credit to, again, to the acting in this movie. I mean, just across the board. I mean, the movie lives or dies by the actors, considering it's only 4 people in the movie, and
yes,
they knocked it out. So. A little heads up. I mean, this going forward for the next season on the podcast, and video cast or whatever. And as far as just so you know, Noah, Llareyna's already said that she thinks that the slasher movies are going to bore her to tears, and I'm like, what the fuck are you smoking? Like,
are you serious?
I didn't say they're going to bore me to tears. I'm just not as excited about it as he is. He is excited because he's going to see slasher titties. So
Who doesn't like titties?
Buckets of blood,
But yeah,
tits all the time. Like, what do you need in a movie?
I said
That's what
I was
I'm
probably going to
asking
be
you.
unimpressed. So I need lots of action. So maybe the slashing alone will keep me going.
She's a liar,
We'll
dude.
see.
I've seen her watch scary movies. She gets all bunched up.
The greatest kills in horror cinema happened during the slasher era. The greatest kills.
You see me get bunched up during zombie films. It's completely different.
No, I see.
I do not like zombies at all. So that's going to be a real interesting season. Maybe human horror, and that's going to get probably everyone in this room. Maybe not you. You're just you're gone.
I enjoy movies. What are you talking about?
No, you enjoy them, but it's not gonna make you cringe as much as it is myself. I'm pretty sure the Reverend himself said, yeah, some of this is gonna get to me. Like, he hasn't seen the Human Centipede, and I've seen Human Centipede 1 and 2.
That's gonna be hard for you.
Oh God.
You know what I just
God,
got? I was gonna try to watch it tonight. Is Glorious. I don't know if you saw trailers for that yet.
I've not watched it. No.
Yeah. Have you heard about it?
Have no idea. No, I don't know what that was about.
You get a chance, just check out the trailer for Glorious. I think Shudder or Buzzsaw helped fund it. I forgot who it was.
I did. This is a tangent and a half, but I did finally see Prey last night. I enjoyed it. I think that the haters on that saying it's too woke, I think they're looking too hard in that one, because it had moments where it could have went a little bit more preachy than it did. But I mean, I felt like it walked the balance well enough to where it was enjoyable.
Well,
so
I think they did a good job legitimizing her as putting the effort in.
She had all the scenes multiple times throughout the movie. Like she had more training montages in that movie than Arnold or any of the others ever did in any of the original Predators. So
that's different. Arnold and them came in as badasses from the get go, playing playing Little Richard. Like, look, that song is cemented in my head for years now after watching Predator.
But I mean, it's way better than. It's way better than anything that they're doing today with like She-Hulk, for instance. I mean, where she literally is better than the Hulk, who's been at this for years.
I don't even want to watch that. I'm not interested. Like, it's not even on my radar.
Your son was interested, and I'm like, I wonder if he just wants to see if he could see some Hulk titties or something. I won't doubt it. He's like, Mom, they got a new Hulk film out.
You need to get him the comics then, because that was the comics were all about just using her sexuality as a way to get the guys to read it, and this has gone the opposite way. It's a bunch of
He's gonna use her brain.
Well, it's not even that. It's like she doesn't even use her brain in this. Like, the biggest criticism I've seen of the show is that she whines about everything not being handed to her, but literally everything is handed to her. Like, she gets a job for no reason, like it just because she's a superhero. She doesn't want to be a superhero.
Well,
but
technically, she's a minority. One. She's green.
Wow.
Yeah, it's like it's just her bitching all the time about the fact that she's got all this privilege, and and then complaining that men have more privilege than her somehow. Whatever.
I'm thinking. Nah, I lost it. It's gone. It's not even worth it. I wanted to talk real quick. Getting away from She-Hulk. Okay, we'll just say it.
It'd be hilarious to dress up as Halloween as She-Hulk.
I should.
No, talking about me.
Oh, you dress up as She-Hulk?
Yeah. Put like a business suit
ma'am.
on. A business suit with a dress and a wig on. And just cover myself green. That would be hilarious.
You should make fun of that meme that's out there. She, them. You should do that.
Oh, my God. We could put that on your tag, like your little ID tag. I wonder if she can only She-Hulk like one time during the month, maybe for a week.
Yeah.
Well, they've made jokes about that on some of the video casts I've listened to, and apparently it possibly might be in the show where it talks about how that part of the time of the month affects her change.
And she's only bleeds green.
She's 10% stronger.
Ugh.
But yeah, they were talking about how like it's buckets are flowing at that time, so she's going to use up the stockpile of feminine hygiene products or something. So
ew, no, okay.
She just folds up a mattress and shoves it up there.
Yeah, that's pretty much
it's memory foam.
Ugh. Anyways, so the Reverend. Is the good Reverend Dr. Death is next week as we speak going to Orlando Hollywood Horror Nights. Him and his wife do it every fucking year.
Yeah, they don't have kids.
That's
it makes
true.
it easy.
It does make it less expensive and easier to manage. So
It's not even less expensive, but you're not maintaining a small independent moron. You're just you're operating as an autonomous adult.
You know,
Where the fuck are the kids at?
little
God damn
kids
it.
that'll run in a crowd of people as soon as they get scared by what's happening
yeah.
from the purge. You know the story. You get it.
yeah.
Where the hell are you going? I don't know. Well, why are you running, moron?
Running from the scary people into what? The scary people. So yes, the
Yeah,
Reverend, he's going to Hollywood Horror Nights. What are you excited to see?
I am excited. There is a couple of houses down there that sound like they're going to be really good. One of them is called Dead Man's Wake, or I think Dead Man's Pier, maybe is what it's called. And it sounds like The Fog, like just
okay.
made into a
Ooh,
house.
that sounds awesome.
It's undead. It's like New England. Undead sailors are coming out of the water in like an icy, village or something to attack you. That one sounds really good. They've got another one. Let's see, what was the other one that I think is actually going to legit scare me? Is there's one called Bug House. It's supposed to be semi-comedic in the fact that it's supposed to be set in like the 1950s Home of the Future, but like you start out in one of those like model homes, and then like they're they probably got the cheesy announcer. I'm imagining they've not said this, going in the house of the future, you'll be able to have food made for you, like that sort of thing. But as you go through the house, like you start noticing like trails of slime just start covering the wall.
Yeah.
And it goes from having like hordes of regular sized bugs to like massive human sized bugs. And they hinted that they're going to have all kinds of shit in that house to make it simulate that bugs are like on your neck, on your arms, like.
You know what that immediately brings to mind is the Creep Show. What was it?
The Roach House. The Roach House.
The guy that was just relentless about killing bugs.
And I think that house might actually get me because anytime I'm outside and like I feel something like, it might just even be like my own hair or something like, out of place.
Yeah.
But, like, on the back of my neck, I'm like, because I've had plenty of times hiking around here where I looked over, I felt a pain in my like shoulder, looked over, and I swear to God, there was a bug about the size of my thumb sitting there draining the blood out of my shoulder. And when you get free, shit like that happening to you enough times, you get a little antsy around bugs. So
Reverend Dr. Death just screaming, ah! in the haunted house.
But that one I think is legit going to get me. I don't think of these other houses. I'm interested in the cool factor of some of the other houses. The Fiesta de Chupacabra is going to be an interesting one for
Yeah,
instance.
they have
but,
Chupacabra, but we have Llareyna. So that's going to be pretty interesting. I want to read off real quick, if you don't mind, what's supposed to be happening in Orlando. And also what's supposed to be happening in Los Angeles. I'll identify both. So I'm not super excited for this one. I think I'll be scared because there'll be people jumping out of you from nowhere. Of course, you're always going to have someone jumping out from the shadows. But it's The Weeknd, After Hours Nightmare. And it's based off of the singer, The Weeknd.
Yeah. I'm going to that house very first thing because that house is either going to be amazing in the weird way that they get it to work, or it's going to be total shit because I don't particularly like that guy's music, but he does have interesting visuals.
Yes, very good visuals in his music video. It does have a Silent Hill theme to it. I'm going to go to it. We're going to go to every single one.
Much.
But
it's almost like they've had botched too many botched plastic surgeries going on in Hollywood or something.
And that's exactly, yes, that's what he has a song exactly about that, basically making how everyone's fake and everything like that, and how they're nothing's real about them. All right, next one, Halloween. Come on, Michael Myers. it's gonna be fun.
Yeah. Now I will say, last year they had a Texas Chainsaw House.
Yes.
And it was at the bottom of my list. It wasn't a bad house, but it also, and I don't know, the Halloween house shouldn't be this way, but Universal is very good about pumping smells in their houses to enhance the atmosphere. They had a whole back alley behind the diner that the family in that, has, where it's like where it smelled like rotted meat, and that house stunk.
I didn't catch it.
So,
But Halloween, we went through the Halloween one last year too, didn't we?
Yeah.
Okay, so we went through this one already. I liked it. I did also like the Texas Chainsaw one. I thought that was pretty good. I wasn't expecting much from those. So
It's all right. The best version I've seen of like a knockoff Texas Chainsaw Massacre was Six Flags did one. It was a slaughterhouse.
Oh,
and
yeah.
And there was a dude running around with a chainsaw.
Oh yeah, chasing me.
Yeah, so the guy had
Oh,
he pulled the chain off, so the chainsaw still had the motor on there, and he was just running around revving it up, waving it at people.
That's when I peed my costume. Oh yeah, he got me good.
Dude, that was
Yeah,
awesome.
there was a
just hanging.
there was
just
a
like,
local haunted house around here that did that too, and that was the one time that they got me because I was at the back of this group. We were in a section where it was supposed to be like these insane, people, these monster-looking people or whatever, in like these rusty metal cages, and they were like, doing the thing where they grind like metal on metal and it sparks or whatever. And they were behind the cages whenever everybody else went through, but I was at the back of the line, and all of a sudden one of them stepped out from behind, and he pulled his chainsaw out and just started revving it up, and he was getting very close to me. And
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, I know that the chain was off of it, but them things still fucking hurt if they accidentally hit you with a revving bar. So I mean, it kind of made me put a little extra effort into getting out of there.
Well, then
so.
you could smell the gas and everything. It's right there. So, okay, next one. I'm actually excited about this one, considering the Bride of Frankenstein last year was pretty decent. But they have Universal Monsters Legends Collide, and we're talking about the original Wolfman, the original Dracula, and the original Mummy. So I'm pretty excited about that one.
Fighting over Amulet of Anubis. So they
Oh,
got a pretty
okay.
cool story for that one. Yeah.
Oh,
it
nice.
sounds really good.
Okay. This one is not going to be in Hollywood, but it's Spirits of the Coven, which the ones that are not related to anything Universal are actually really fucking good.
They're most of the time the best. 'Cause
Yes.
they go all out in them.
They do.
the Purge one was pretty good. They did.
Yeah, but they don't have anything like that in Orlando.
Okay.
Ours is different this year. I guess every year they do something different, but when I saw them building the set, it looked identical to me. So we'll see how it turns out. Because I'm going to read the Los Angeles ones here shortly. Bugs Eaten Alive, which the Reverend already mentioned. And then Fiesta de Chupacabras. So that's happening. Okay. This one's probably going to be good. Hell Block Horror. Looks like a prison.
Yeah. So the interesting thing about that house was it's rumored that was going to be Evil Dead or Evil Dead Rise. I think Evil Dead Rise was the theory, but then they pulled that movie and they moved it back till next year. So I think the IP got lost by Universal.
Oh, shit.
So instead of it even being, they had to do a last minute switch. So this went from being, like Deadites and, whatever else is going on in that house to they went all out with this one through use basically the kitchen sink at it. So it's going to be you are a group. I mean, the story is that you're the 10th wave of prison guards that are being sent into this prison that houses nothing but monsters of all different types.
Oh,
so
wow.
It's going to be a smorgasbord.
Oh, yeah.
And you're going in there to try to get to the core that's at the bait or, inside the deepest part of the prison, the stuff to basically blow the place up because they can't contain them any longer. They broke out. There's no way of holding them in there any longer. So if anybody's ever seen the end to Cabin in the Woods, just imagine the shit that's going on in that. And that's kind of what the vibe is for this house. It could be very good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I forgot this one. This one's also going to be in Los Angeles. It's the Blumhouse, Horrors of Blumhouse, and it looks like it features the Ruthless Killer in Freaky and the Kidnapper in The Black Phone. So that'll be fun for the kids.
Yeah, that's going to be an interesting house because in the past they've typically done where they do half and half, like half the scenes are from one movie and half from the other. There's a lot of people, I don't know that this is going to be the case, but a lot of people are hoping that they actually mingle them together because if they could get you have literally, even if they just stack them like one scene, you're, getting attacked by Vince Vaughn's killer from Freaky, which I watched again the other night with my wife, and it's grown on me. I initially didn't like that movie as much, mostly because Catherine Newton, who was in Supernatural, played, the daughter to Castiel.
Oh, yeah. Claire.
She's not very good. I mean, she's okay when she's playing the teenager in the movie, but when she has to play the killer, it's Catherine Newton. Like she's a small, wafer thin girl. Like it doesn't, but like going back and rewatching it, and kind of like accepting that fact, she's not terrible. Cause I mean, you do see where it's almost like she's trying to take it from the point of view that the killer realizes he can use the character's sexuality as
Oh,
like a way to
yeah.
get in close to people. So she kind of works it from that angle. Vince Vaughn's the highlight of the movie. He's awesome in both roles. Like when he tries to imitate being a teenage girl, you can just imagine Vince Vaughn acting like a teenage girl, and you know what you're getting. Yeah.
Dead Man's Pier, which will not be in Hollywood, so you mentioned that one. Descendants of Destruction. This one says, careful not to leave any of your Scream Squad. Okay, so you mentioned that one.
That one is going to be very interesting because that's a post-apocalyptic follow-up to another one. They had one called, in like 2 or 3 years ago, called Seeds of Destruction. It was set like after humanity did something to the environment that caused the plants, basically like the happening or whatever it was, but in a different way. Like the plants rose up to kill us. Like they became, poisonous to us. They started, eating us, that sort of thing.
That's kind of like knock on the movie The Triffids.
Yeah. So the gist of this one is what happened to what happened to the humans in that world when they went underground to avoid the plants, and they started, because of whatever was in the environment, they mutated over time. So you're going to be in like this subway system underground with these mutated like beasts or whatever that were once humans, and they're like attacking you. So that one could be very good,
Yeah. Okay, so I'm just going to go. So that's it for Orlando. For Hollywood, I'm just going to go through the ones that are not going to be in Orlando. We have The Terror Tram, as usual, and it's Into the Mind of Jordan Peele. So it's going to feature basically visiting the world of Us and Nope.
Did you ever watch Nope?
I did not watch that movie. I want to watch it when it comes on some kind of streaming service, but I don't want to pay to watch it because I don't know. It looks weird.
I'm curious what the reviews are for it. I haven't seen any reviews.
Well, the thing is, that's the problem, because I can't trust the people, because the people who are the stands, the ones that are all that blow smoke up Jordan Peele's ass every time he releases a movie, are putting it over the moon, saying it's the greatest thing that was ever produced in horror, period, which is bullshit.
Yeah.
Even Jordan Peele, to his credit, we covered this on the last episode of the news, actually came out and said, it's like, no, John Carpenter's the greatest horror director ever, and you need to, watch what you say. So at least Jordan Peele gives credit where credit's due.
You guys all need to watch your dirty whore mouths.
But they're trying to say it's the best thing since sliced bread. So I don't believe those people. Other people have said it's kind of dull and weird, and I kind of feel like that's what I would think about it, because I was not impressed by Get Out. I thought it was an okay movie. And then Us, I actually enjoyed more. I know that a lot of people don't feel that way. I thought that there was elements to Us that were creepy and worked well. It's just one of those movies where, it's kind of weird in its own way too. So but it actually made a pretty good house at HHN. Us did. So you all might, get some good mileage out of that. I don't know about Nope. I don't know how that's going to play out.
Yeah, I thought Us was pretty good. I liked it. Yeah.
I thought it was a good take on that, idea that everybody has a doppelganger somewhere on the planet. It's interesting thought.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to try to put a short episode together of just the houses. There's more I'm going to go over, but we're going to have to try to put just a single episode together of the homes we went through. Okay, this one, I'm kind of excited about this one because I loved this movie as a kid. I am so sad you don't get to experience this in your world. Killer Clowns from Outer Space. I am so excited for the kids to experience that. I would love a balloon of blood to pop in my face.
I'm upset that we don't have that, but we had it in 2019, the very first year that me and my wife went to it. So I'm happy that you all get to enjoy it this time.
Why do you have to act like you're better than us? Fine.
They always do different things because of the constraints of the houses and all that. So I'm interested to hear or see online what they did differently out for you all. But I felt like a lot of people, it was not at the top of their list because it was a comedic house. It was more, it was one of those houses that was an experience house, like in Ghostbusters. It was like, if you love the movie, then you basically walk through the movie. And I love that movie. So that house was the top of my list that year, just because they did such a good job with the different scenes from it.
I'm excited for it for sure. We need to have the kids watch it, so for sure. This one I am the most excited for. Should be no surprise, Llareyna, and probably the primary reason I wanted to go. I mean, at this point, I was like, okay, maybe if we can just like afford to go real quick and just go to that house, that I was willing to negotiate whatever it took to make it happen. So we are going to see. She better not touch my husband or my kids. It'll be Llareyna versus Llareyna. It will not be pretty.
That house has a lot of potential. I think that's going to be a very, very good house out there.
Now, I heard that Llareyna happened in 2019, and I'm not sure if that was out here. Obviously not in your area because you've been for the past 100 years. You've been going to these homes. So
they had one. Remember, like, so around here they do a bunch of haunted houses in the local area.
yes,
And there's that one that
Yes.
that warehouse that does like those 3 different attractions, and one of them was that.
yeah, it wasn't her exactly, but it was like the Weeping Woman or something like that.
Yeah.
It was basically the same thing.
Hollywood HHN did do that
Okay.
at some point out there. So it's kind of a repeat house, but it was one of their better rated houses, I believe,
Okay.
at the time that they had.
And I haven't seen it, so I'm excited for that. And then some of the lesser known homes that we get to experience, Scarecrow of the Reaping, which I imagine is going to be really good.
That was the top rated house in 2018, or I believe it's 2018. That was the year before we went for that event. They said that house is friggin' scary as hell, just
Yes.
because they quick and fast at you. Those scarecrows are attacking from all angles.
Oh,
So,
nice.
Um,
Kids are going to love that.
Orlando's got a version of that. It's a scare zone, so it's going to be out in the open. But they're doing a weird thing with it to kind of get more of that claustrophobic feel of a house, in the sense that to walk through the zone, you've got to walk through a barn that is like closed in, so the scarecrows can get closer to you that way. So
Yeah.
it's so we'll get a little bit of that, but that was a really good house whenever it was at Orlando.
We had a few dressed up characters walking around at Universal, and they get in your face and they scare you. And I got scared multiple times, but we had a scare zone of Jabberwockies. It was very stupid. I was not impressed by it at all. I was like, really?
The scare zones last year at both places were supposed to be piss poor. This year they've upped their game. Like
Yeah.
The one at Orlando looks like it's got some very good ones. Like there's one that I'm really looking forward to that's in the New York area called Sweet Revenge. And the gist of the story is there's a fall festival going on. So they've got a parade that's like broke down in the streets, and they've got like the little judges booth and all that. And there was a company, a big major company that made candy, who sponsored the event, but they poisoned it. And what happened whenever the kids ate it is the kids became psychotic killers.
Oh.
So you're going to be going through this like broken down, like, fall festival where these like kids with like blood where they are in all, and all that, or just like, trying to kill you as you walk through it. So I think that's going to be really cool.
Yeah. And then last but not least, for Hollywood Halloween Horror Nights is going to be Welcome to the Hotel from Hell. And it's a 1920s themed hotel. So I'm stoked for that as well.
Oh, that one's going to be really good.
Yeah.
No, they're not gonna allow you in there. You're Mexican.
Well, then I'll just stay
We're
at
staying
the...
true to the time frame.
I'll stay at Llareyna's Hacienda then. We'll be fine.
Listen, would they deny her access, or would they tell her that she had to put on a maid's costume before she was allowed in?
You're late to
come
work.
on.
Go put your shit on. We need
dirty.
you to clean up.
My skin, for the record, is whiter than the both of yours, okay? So...
But your facial features aren't, babe.
My facial features, thanks. Maybe if I smile big enough and they see the fangs, they'll think I'm one of the characters for the
Just come on
legends.
in.
Yeah. Oh, hey, you're late for work. Like, this is what I'm talking about. So, okay, moving on, because we are ending this podcast here shortly, but I just wanted to point out, so I had mentioned that you're going to Universal's Halloween Horror Nights, as I can speak. After you return, we will be reviewing Llareyna and the Woman in White, so we are sticking to a theme.
Yes, Lady in White.
Oh,
Correction.
excuse me. Ooh.
Ooh.
She's a lady, everybody, not a woman.
Yeah, well, it's but it's the whole theme behind that episode is obviously the Woman in White. We might even mention the supernatural episode that started the whole entire damn show was based on that concept. But there's that, and just throw like a little, because we've got too much white supremacy in that comment. So what we're going to do is I'm going to review The Woman in Black.
Oh, okay.
Attack of the Bees.
All right, just kind of keep it neutral.
Yeah.
Very well, very well. So, okay, well, I look forward to talking to you when you return. For anyone that is new or just checking this shit out and wondering who the fuck we are, we didn't even introduce ourselves because we just rolled right into it. Reverend Dr. Death. I'm Llareyna. My husband pops in every few episodes if we allow him to.
Correct, if I'm allowed.
To give his review on the episodes. And he has his own podcast called Blue Collar BS, which you can find on YouTube every Friday, 8 p.m.-ish, California time, as I like to say. So figure it out.
If you're a blue-collar worker, you'll like it. There's a lot of shit talking.
Yeah, a lot of shit talking. So is there anything else, Reverend, before we close out?
I can't really think of anything. I think that's pretty much covered it.
Yeah, I think we got it. So thanks for tuning in, and I guess we'll see you next time. Well,
And with that, peace be with you.
and with your spirit. Oop, that wasn't it.
That's actually a pretty good way to end the show.
Yeah.